overall, e-commerce as an industry, it is very clear that it continues to be underpenetrated in the India market. But actually, when you think about a product analogy, and if you think about building careers for the long term, if you think about personalized benefits, these are actually products. These are products which are actually serving consumers who are employees. Now, in a product parlance, you would automatically think personalization. You also need to make sure that you have sustainable org structure, because you can't have org designs changing every quarter. You have to make sure that through a very defined talent process, you're able to put together org designs that last a certain period of time. When we defined our HR strategy, at the center of it was the employee. So our purpose is actually about empowering every Flipster to maximize their potential and well-being. And the combination of potential and well-being is very powerful. Essentially, what you're saying is the kind of skills that you bring to the table, you should be able to discover the set of roles that are most suitable to those skills and maximize yourself in the company and land that impact. I think in the pursuit of growth, you have to, like you correctly said, look at aspects of is your talent really placed in the right positions? I think, first of all, data orientation as a mindset plus functional capability in HR, I think is lacking overall.
Hello and welcome everyone to this brand new episode of our special series HR Evolution Perspectives 2023 Expert Take, presented by People Matters in association with Darwinbox. I'm your host Pallavi. Through this exclusive series, we will be delving deep into conversations with top CHROs and thinking minds from the people and work landscape across Asia. The series builds on insights from the HR Evolution Perspectives 2023 Empower and Evolve Research Study, which is one of the largest workplace transformation studies in Asia. Through responses gathered from over 2,000 HR practitioners and 1,200 plus employees, the trends and insights captured in this report, they paint an in-depth picture of what companies and employees demand today. We're going to look forward to exciting conversations with top leaders to get their perspective on the top trends we're seeing from the research and understand from them some of the strategies that they will be adopting to drive their business forward in a year that forecasts growth and innovation. In today's episode, we have with us Krishna Raghavan, Chief People Officer of Flipkart, with over a decade of experience working in product companies across the US and India, extensive experience and e-commerce app, SaaS delivery model, engineering leadership and management, product startups, enterprise solutions, integrations, and running 24/7 high availability product operations. Krishna is a seasoned and inspiring manager who's built great engineering organizations from ground up through long-term strategic vision and hiring, backed by intuitive people management and sound organizational planning. Successfully led teams that were responsible for global product delivery. Krishna is constantly on the lookout for opportunities to enhance the product offering by researching, evangelizing, and implementing new technologies. Welcome to this show.
Thank you so much, Pallavi, for having me.
Also joining us is Sashwat Kumar, Senior VP Global Customer Success and Delivery, Darwinbox. Sashwat, as Darwinbox helps accelerate the drive to value realization for large and medium enterprise customers, building the leading HCM provider's reputation as a trusted advisor for its 600 plus customers and accelerates the company's global expansion. Very warm welcome, Sashwat.
Thank you, Pallavi, for having me for this discussion. Look forward to the chat with Krishna on this.
Same
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And to take this conversation further, I would now like to hand over it to Sashwat, who will be delving into a deeper conversation with Krishna. Over to you, Sashwat.
Thanks, Pallavi. Krishna, as we start this discussion, and if you look at the research itself, which is it's the largest research already in its first edition in the region. And we have talked to both business leaders and employees directly to get both the perspective. The theme primarily is growth. So if you look at all the business leaders are saying growth remains a focus for us, both revenue, profitability. They are also talking about multiple drivers of growth, which is they want to drive both organic, inorganic, or geo expansion, all kinds of drivers you can think of. And but when you look at productivity or headcount, there is a theme of constraint. So while they are saying we want to grow a lot, there is this constraint, and in separate response in the report, there is also constraint about rising people costs. So you see a caution or lesser growth expectation on headcount, and ESG is coming strong, which a lot of people will assume in the emerging markets, which we are in Asia, ESG theme is underplayed, but it's not true. In a very large base, it's coming up. So think of demand on HR coming from a growth angle, and growth with multiple drivers. So
Yeah.
think of variety of talent strategies needed, think of the whole productivity angle, and obviously ESG dimension. I'm sure you are living a combination of this on a daily basis. So what's your take on this? What you are experiencing, where things are working, what's not working, and you are tweaking? Any experience and insight there will be super helpful.
No, and it's a great starter question, by the way, Shashwat. You're absolutely right. There is definitely an ambition for growth, both organic and inorganic, across companies in the industry, and Flipkart's no stranger to that as well, right? I think our pace of growth has been phenomenal over the last 15, 16 years that we've been in the industry. And if you look at the industry overall, e-commerce as an industry, it is very clear that it continues to be underpenetrated in the India market, which is what we serve today as a company. So, in a landscape like e-commerce, I think there are many, many scenarios that play out, which actually could impact both profitability and growth. And you talked about this dichotomy, which is this ambition for growth, but also the fact that you need to keep your costs in check for you to drive profitability, efficiency. While at the surface, it actually seems like a bit of a dichotomy, but the way at least I think about it, and possibly many organizations are, is how do you balance the two, right? I think in the pursuit of growth, you have to, like you correctly said, look at aspects of is your talent really placed in the right positions? What is your talent strategy? Just to put it in perspective, Flipkart has many lines of business, and we just got into travel a couple of years back. We got into health. So there are many domains as well that we are playing in. And it's important for us to kind of realize that if we don't have a well-defined talent strategy, which is, making sure that we have the right capabilities in the right set of individuals and they are placed in the right set of roles, it actually becomes a bit of a challenge in terms of how you drive that growth in the first place. So that focus on talent in terms of building them for the future is one that we spend inordinate amount of time at Flipkart. The second thing that I would want to speak to, in terms of balancing this demand for growth and cost, is looking at aspects of your org structure. Broadly put, when you look at your org structure, there are certain principles that govern org design, uh, in terms of how are you looking at in imbibing agility in the organization, right? What are the hindrances that you see which actually cause agility to go awry? For instance, in our company, as an example, we've also seen that the more you empower managers and leaders, reduce the number of layers in the organization, the efficiency and productivity actually goes up multifold. That's just one example. And you also need to make sure that you have sustainable org structure, because you can't have org designs changing every quarter. You have to make sure that through a very defined talent process, you're able to put together org designs that last a certain period of time. And why I'm saying this is, if you don't get the org design in a definitive state to some extent, at least even in a volatile company like an industry like ours, I think you can allow for it to change even every 6 months. But if you don't put that thought process in place, you will not be able to build the right efficiency. So our focus has been also on making sure that we are able to build talent for the future, and how do we place this talent in a sustainable and agile org structure.
So in fact, super interesting. Your comments actually connect to the next section of the research very well. So Krishna, what has happened is we asked leaders two questions. One was the growth mindset, and second, if you think of it, what are the things which will pull you back?
Yeah.
So from a business leadership, the whole point of view capability or lack of capability pulling us back is expected. And this has been a theme of last 10, 15 years. So the moment you put growth, capability as a big risk will always emerge. But the interesting piece is there is a lot of theming around experience delivery, empowerment, ability to adjust to business model changes, adjust to new ways of working, and that talks to the theme you were talking about, org change and agility in organization. And you have rightly said, at least in my personal consulting experience, agility is a combination of you empower, you enable, only then expect agility. That's the sequence you will have to go through. So you kind of talk through what business leaders have echoed as big gaps or concern which they expect that will pull back.
Yeah.
Now, linked to that, what is also happening is that the expectation on HR is changing, or expectations from HR is
Yeah.
changing. So now think of it. I will say it's not HR as a function, it's CS or human capital as a challenge is central to all transformation. And HR is seen as a custodian who can deliver that.
That's correct.
HR also has to balance the trust of employees. So
Yes.
that's where the new paradigm of HR transformation. You have to deliver to the business themes of empowerment of frontline, ability to adjust to org changes, agility, and obviously deliver the old paradigm of process tech, service excellence, and so on. So your thoughts there, what you have been doing, what has worked, and the whole, to your point, COVID was a boom time because all organizations face growth. E-commerce giants face even bigger growth pressures.
Yeah.
So all these challenges I talked through is most probably amplified in your ecosystem. So it will be interesting to hear from you.
No, thank you, Shashwat. Very interesting question that you talked about in terms of how HR function itself is actually getting transformed in the process. And like you correctly said, it's about human capital, right? And it's probably the most valuable resource in a company and across industries. I don't think I need to speak about technology or product companies. Irrespective of company, I think that's the most valuable asset that any company has. So I think what we've kind of focused on, and HR within Flipkart has also gone through a fair bit of transformation. And I'd like to kind of paint a picture for you,
Yeah.
which kind of helps put all of this together. When we defined our HR strategy, at the center of it was the employee. So our purpose is actually about empowering every Flipster to maximize their potential and well-being. And the combination of potential and well-being is very powerful. Essentially, what you're saying is the kind of skills that you bring to the table, you should be able to discover the set of roles that are most suitable to those skills and maximize yourself in the company and land that impact. And obviously, in the process, making sure that we are able to take care of you from a well-being perspective, and well-being not just physical but all aspects of well-being. Now,
Yeah.
while that being the purpose statement, the way we thought about it, and you spoke about the fact that there is an ask from business on HR on making sure that we meet the needs of the business, growth, profitability, entering new domains, in some cases, hyperactive growth that was experienced by us, while also keeping the employee at the center. And the way we've chosen to balance that is really through for two foundational pillars, as we call them. One is talent experience, and the other one is the future fit org. And under talent experience, what we've done is that we've said right through the employee life cycle, starting at how you acquire, how you nurture and retain, and how you reward and recognize, we need to land a intended set of experiences for employees, keeping the employee at the center. And on the future fit org side of things, on the talent experience side, we have the employee at the center. In the future fit org, we have the org at the center, which is what are the needs of the org in making sure we're able to deliver to business. Do we have the right talent, depth, and breadth? Do we have the right culture, right? And do we have the sustainable processes and technology that supports all of this? So those have become our key priorities, and that's how we make sure that we balance these two needs from the business. I
Yeah.
hope that answers your question, Shashwat.
No, this is, I'm just taking notes. So this is super interesting. So, what you are doing, so think of it. Today's, there are, and it's uh, think of old paradigm of uh, critical roles and succession, which was a top-down view.
Yeah,
Careers, which was always the biggest driver for engagement or lack of engagement for everyone.
correct.
And in the old world, tech was a constraint because physically you cannot do it for all. So you only did it for critical roles. Today, literally, technology allows you to connect both up, down, and bottom up, and you can meet the aspiration. So that's one paradigm. The other paradigm, which you talked through actually, is need from an org perspective, including agility capability. So capability is what agility, and the way is how the culture piece you talked about, experiences, and that's where the research actually became interesting, is that people see it as two disjointed pieces, but reality is experiences, and you talked about intended experiences. Experiences builds belief, and belief alters behaviors.
Correct.
And that's where we actually will individually land all employees, and that's where from a light to a leisure you kind of get the whole momentum in the org. So great point, so super relevant. uh, Now what I will do, I will jump off and go to the other side, and you did talk about employees and the whole focus there around intended experience and all. In the research we did unpack different demographics, because there is this whole noise around how different demographics look at experiences and all. If you look at it, there is some differences, but it's not substantial. So
Hmm.
fundamentally everyone has changed. The psychographic has changed,
Yeah,
irrespective of my age. So today, I am not the same Shashwat I was 20 years before. So
that's
that's
correct.
a fundamental big change. Obviously, younger generation is way more, I think, time bound, more demanding. They want it faster than similar things. But if you compare between a boomer to a Gen Z, that's the big difference, is the time window in which they want to demand or take call. And it's also the environment. They are not a generation which has seen a scarcity of jobs and things like those
Yeah.
versus the generation before and so on. So how do you balance this personalization in your theme, because you have extreme diversity, and at your scale even a small population is significant. So how do you take care of this, and any learnings there?
Yeah. No, beautiful, Shashwat. I think you spoke to the aspects of what we are actually working through right now. And Flipkart's probably not a unique organization in that way, but we have a very diverse workforce, right from technology to supply chain to marketing, right? And when we actually think about how we land the talent experience pillar that I talked about earlier to your earlier question, one of the things that we realized very early on, and even in the way, Shashwat, that the HR function itself was organized, is that we are very focused on functional silos even within HR,
Yeah.
which is you have a COE, you have rewards, you have acquisition, you have HR PPs. But actually, when you think about a product analogy, and if you think about building careers for the long term, if you think about personalized benefits, these are actually products. These are
Horizontals.
products which are actually serving consumers who are employees. Now, in a product parlance, you would automatically think personalization. That would be your next beachhead to get to, because that's the way you'll be able to deliver superlative experiences. So, what we did in the talent experience pillar is we completely changed the way we work, even as a function internally. And we started by saying, you know what? The demographics are quite different, like you said, but at the core, everybody seeks the same. What do they seek? Actually, they seek fulfillment in what they do and whatever
Yeah.
job that they're doing. And fulfillment is a large word. We can talk about hours about it, but end of the day, that's what they're seeking, and they're seeking well-being, right? And this assumes different shape and forms depending on the demographic you speak to and the tolerance for patience.
Yeah.
I think that's the part that I see differing, but the core remains unchanged. So what we said is let's define personas like we would use in design thinking and product. Define personas. You have somebody who's a new joiner who's entered our organization. You have somebody who's become a manager for the first time in their career. You have somebody who's a leader of a business unit. You have somebody looking to join us who's a candidate. So, to put it simply, define very definitive personas and hopefully non overlapping needs to a great extent, and organize the HR function itself to create a task force, a pod to actually go after the persona's needs and say, this is the new candidate persona need or the new joiner persona need. And these are how we are going to string the experiences that we need to deliver to this persona. And it starts at acquire and nurture and retain and reward and recognize. So for every persona, we built a roadmap, and all the products and policies are actually catering to that persona. And thereby, we were able to solve for personalization. Now, this is not personalization at the level of a Shashwat, at the level of a Krishna. But I think every journey that has to start in stages and phases.
Yeah.
If you start by solving for cohorts, you then can potentially take that further beyond and start solving for individuals.
Yeah. So, Krishna, great points here. In fact, because this is an area where I have done my life's work. HRT is where I have done 20 years of consulting. And to your point, the largest roadblock for HRT is HR itself. So HR looks at HR's mandate as 1% of the expense budget, which is HR's budget, versus impact they can create on the 100% of the business itself. And silos draws it back because HR thinks through domain. But to the point you were making is you have to deliver outcomes. And fundamentally, any outcome you pick up which is relevant in HR cuts through multiple domains. And that supply chain thinking is a natural challenge in HR. So how do you deliver that collaboration and so on? In fact, you put the whole experience findings from the research fairly well. It's a consistent human nature what we look for. Tolerance is not necessarily same and different. And coming to personas, could not agree more with you, because as you understand personas better, you actually understand the problem statement better. Because
Yeah.
unless until you understand the problem statement better, you cannot solve for it. So think of a simple problem statement. People will come and say to an HR tech provider, I need access to data. Employee needs access to data.
Mm.
They need the desktop access. Then someone will say, no, you need access to data anytime, anywhere. Okay, mobile
Yeah.
access will work. Then someone will say, no, 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 you need anytime, anywhere. But I have employees who are sitting in Mexico with managers in India. So now in Mexico, it needs to be in Spanish. Letters need to work. Now,
Yeah.
if manager approval will not happen in time. So suddenly, as you start fleshing the problem, you can do experience better. And the final point, your piece around experience, if you think of it as a canvas, it will start at certain level, and then you with data you can go deeper with fidelity and improve. So I will then pick your mind on one more thing, is that the acceleration of HR transformation, Krishna, is discipline around data.
Yeah.
And this is proven over 10 12 years of research. People who do HR transformation or get value out of HR transformation are organizations who look at data with discipline, bring together all aspects of HR, which you talked about, and make them collaborate with data to say
Yeah.
that, okay, what does data say? My recruitment is working, not working. Why it's not working? Can we build a hypothesis, take action, come back again in a month and look at data? And these organizations do not need to do HR transformation again because
Yeah.
they will constantly calibrate. But interestingly, this discipline is the worst in Asia. It's very poor.
Mm.
Generally, we lack the discipline of working with data, especially in HR as a function. And HR mostly will hold back data from business.
Mm.
So, yeah, obviously, you need to work data within HR. So, think a COE to HRBP to ops, but also you need to do the same governance with business in room. So,
Yeah.
how your experience has been, because when that starts happening, HR starts becoming more agile in the way they do things. So that's where I wanted to pick your mind.
Yeah, absolutely, Shashwat. You're bang on. I think, first of all, data orientation as a mindset plus functional capability in HR, I think is lacking overall. My assessment, in I think multiple conversations I've had in different forums, that's what's coming through, and your research indicates the same, at least
Yeah.
for APAC. What we've done at Flipkart is, there have been multiple stages to this journey, and it's a combination of things that we've actually executed on, Shashwat. First is, we are a tech first company, right? So, from that perspective, everything that we do, we try to measure. And so, for every function within HR and also overall at an HR level, we've defined what we call a combination of both input and output metrics. As an example, you can talk about overall attrition, but the leading factors into attrition are aspects of engagement. You
Mm.
know, the aspects of, and you don't measure engagement once a year. We measure engagement now multiple times a year, as an example. So we've defined a combination of both input and output metrics for every function within HR at an HR overall level as well. Number one. So it's also the first step is to make sure that you have clear definition of metrics
Yeah.
and you establish a common understanding of these metrics.
100%.
Then the next problem is, do you have the requisite, I'm using a word, plumbing, for the data to come through? If your data accuracy in terms of both completeness and correctness is not there, you're actually chasing a dream which will never materialize.
Yeah.
Because you might define the metrics, but if you don't have the capabilities to actually have the data plumbing around it, it will not sustain in the organization. So, what we've done is that we've invested a lot behind people tech and people analytics in the company, and we've established a common data lake where all of this data flows from very disparate systems. We may have different systems powering, for instance, um, like employee engagement, talent acquisition, and things of that nature. We try to bring all of this together, and we've defined proper data models for the same. So that's something we've done as a second step. Third is we've invested heavily behind capability building of the HR function itself. So a lot of the times we used to spend efforts in creating data presentations, so to speak. We've completely done away with that. So now every data presentation is off the live dashboard, and the live dashboard is powered from people tech and analytics.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
and the ability for HRBPs and all HR professionals within the organization to be able to use and utilize this to great effect. We put in a lot of capability building efforts in this direction, right? So those are the three steps we've kind of taken to get to this stage. And I would be the first person to say, Shashwat, the journey is still not done. I think there's still more work to be done. We want to get to a space where we become a lot more predictive with the data that we have rather than reactive.
Yeah.
So one of the interesting experiments we've done is, we've kind of created a model that also is a predictor of attrition. And we put it against actual real examples, and we've measured its accuracy and things of that nature. So we constantly try to, now we are moving in the direction of how do we become a lot more predictive in the space of, with the data that we have.
Yeah. So thanks. This is super helpful, and this is the right thing because what you need data for, because India also has this challenge of we have a lot of engineers, so we over engineer even data. Suddenly you will realize we are publishing 300 metrics. So you need to know what data is relevant and why. Then having the data itself come through with less effort, and then is the whole the capability around storytelling with data, and that discipline will lead to hypothesis prediction and all of that. So this is super interesting, and this is an area close where I've done a lot of work in past, and as DB also we do fair bit of work, and we are getting into some experiments both here and experiences, because as you think of prediction, actions will lead to your experience and moments. So how do
Correct.
you combine the two engine and again loop back data, because even experiences can only be improved if you are measuring data, taking feedback, and also that's one of the big things we are doing. So now talk while you are in the midst of this journey, and wish you the best. You will, I guess you will do really well here. The last thing, as you go back and look at learnings already incurred from an HR tech, some of these data pieces and all, and if you today have to start the same thing, what things you will do differently?
Yeah, I think on HR tech, very clear top of mind answer for me is tech for the sake of tech is going to lead you nowhere, Shashwat. When we look at technology in the space of HR as IT or tooling, and all we are doing is automating what exists as processes, you've completely lost the plot.
Yeah.
So what it leads to is a very fragmented universe of tech products, which you finally are going to find it very hard to interconnect and establish a common universe. So what in turn you have to do first is define your experiences. Define, as an example, if we are talking about continuous listening to the employee and you want to put out multiple surveys and also get inputs from employees during moments that matter, you have to almost think again, and I go back to product thinking of the persona and how this persona is going to receive this product. As an example, when we rolled out the survey, while you may get out a mood score for a manager, but if you just give the mood score to the manager without providing a comprehensive dashboard, which allows him to slice and dice this data based on anonymity, obviously, you are leaving the solution half baked. So if you think of tech as tech and say, I'm just bringing technology into HR, and most technology transformations in HR therefore fail because of this precise reason. But if you think about what's your North Star of experiences you want to deliver, and therefore what is the kind of tool set and product set you want to bring into the fold, then I think your journey will be a lot more fruitful. That's probably my biggest takeaway, Shashwat.
No, this is awesome, and this is this actually is my job description. What we realize, to your point, is no one does HR digital for HR digital, because there is no value in that.
Yeah,
So ideally, when someone says that I need to do an HR digital program, the question is what's in it for HR and what's in it for business, employee, and managers. So to your point, now as a rule, we say that in our methodology, which we have named inflection, you cannot close the kickoff stage till this vision is documented and signed off.
mm,
And then you go back and gate and question it all the time, and think of it from a provider's lens perspective. While tech firms get all the, and actually if you look at the tech ecosystem does enough mis-selling. So I'm not saying that we don't,
mm.
we are not to be blamed, but we said that if you look at the opportunity is the value is in renewal. Think of
Correct.
it, value is not in the sale. So how do you demonstrate a improvement journey to a client so that renewal is natural and at a higher value, is to anchor on that vision why this program is happening and demonstrate it monthly and quarterly with data.
That's correct.
So as we now, and this is a year and a half, 2 years back change, as we close an implementation and hand over to CS, which is customer success, the thing is who owns this at client side. And this has been great in many clients and uncomfortable in some clients, because
Got it.
then you are also making them commit to this higher order outcome, which many a times is a paper exercise. You have actually done this vision commitment, but you don't want to expose yourself, because now you are saying this data will come every quarter, and data you cannot predict whether it will be good or bad.
Correct.
Uh, but your point here is super valid, because if this doesn't happen, tech on its own will not succeed.
That's correct.
Yeah. So, any questions you have for me, happy to answer. But from my perspective, this was super useful and very insightful. I am sure a lot of clients or organizations, not only in India, but across APAC, will learn from your growth story and the kind of growth. This is also one of the inspirational stories of homegrown or regionally grown businesses competing with global leaders and so on. So, super thankful on this. any question you have, I will try and answer.
No,
Thanks.
thank you, Shashwat, first of all, for putting this session together. I think all your questions were extremely insightful. It was an absolute pleasure jogging my memory and my learnings and insights, and to be able to actually share this on the platform. Uh, I don't have any particular questions at this stage. Happy to connect later at a later point in time.
Yeah, we'll do that. You have a great trip, and I enjoy the beauty of the valley there. Yeah, so
Thank
we'll
you.
definitely connect with you. If you are in Singapore, please ping me. If I am in Bangalore, definitely we'll reach out and we'll meet. Thanks.
Absolutely, Shashwat. Looking forward to that occasion.
Over to you, Pallavi.
Thank you so much, Krishna and Sashwat, for those wonderful learnings and insights from this conversation.
Thank you. Thank you, Pallavi.
And for everyone watching this interview who tuned in, thank you so much. If you have not yet got the copy of HR Evolution Perspectives 2023 Empower and Evolve edition of the study, then we request you to click on the link provided below this interview to download the copy now. If you want more details on how to automate day-to-day HR processes, steps to simplify human interactions, and getting actionable insights to build better workplaces, you can also visit www.darwinbox.com. And with this, we close this interview today. Stay tuned in for HR Evolution Perspectives 2023 Expert Take with more conversations where we break down on the important talent trends across India and APAC and deliberate solutions with the top talent leaders in the region. Thank you and have a good day.